All right, hey fellas, welcome back. Episode 4, Control+Alt+Discuss podcast. Happy to see you boys again. How is everything going?
Go ahead, girl.
Oh, good. All going good for me. I have no problems. Go ahead.
So descriptive. Going well for me as well. I've tried to get back to a 2-video schedule. It's killing me because I was just telling y'all a second ago. I put 12, 15 hours into a video, and I've got all these companies stacking up wanting me to review stuff, and most of it I don't want to review. So at least there's that. What about you, Cozy? How are you?
Not bad, man. I got out. It was weird. Last week I got out 3 videos.
Nice.
And they just kind of all came together at the right time. And now I'm working on potentially getting out 2 videos this week, and then another 2 videos next week. I got a long list of stuff I got to finish before like middle of May, and then end of May. And I'm on contract for some of it, so I got to move quick. But let's jump to the podcast. So thanks to the new audience joining the official channel for Control+Alt+Discuss. And
Yeah.
we got some
for sure.
pretty cool topics to talk about today, and we're gonna start today with a pretty good one for our audience, at least. Stellar Blade controversy. Corey, I know you're familiar with Stellar Blade. You want to tell the crowd about Stellar Blade if they're not familiar with it?
Yeah, I've never actually played it myself. I do want to because it just looks like a fun game. Don't know how good the story is, but I don't think that's why people are necessarily buying it. But Sony decided to get in there and censor some of the characters. For those that are unfamiliar with Stellar Blade, it's got a lot of well endowed women that are fighting and killing things, and let's see, Carl enjoys that. And but what they did is they one of the examples that's shown all over the place is they have that this girl has cleavage, and they put a little black triangle of fabric right there just to so it's less cleavage. It's still has super tight skin tight outfits, and everything else is very revealing, but apparently that's going to change and appease people. And it's interesting because there's games that are American based that are not from Japan that are even more raunchy than that. And but for some reason they censor games like that. And I think I was watching Critical Drinker, a YouTuber, talking about how it happens to a lot of games from Japan specifically. I don't know why.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
But it's right now there's a petition to reverse that, and I don't think it's just people who want the cleavage back. I think it's there's people that bought the game and either paid extra for some DLC or for some additional outfits, who then they don't get exactly what they paid for. And whatever your intentions are for why Carl would buy a game like that, to dig it, Carl, I was just kidding. But whatever your intentions are to buy a game like that, you should get what you pay for and not have the company take it back. So there's a massive petition right now going on that it's hey, Sony, you can't do this. So that's what's going on. Love to hear y'all's thoughts on it.
One of the things that I did read about that in conjunction with what you were talking about was that this is not Sony has a track record of kind of doing things behind the scenes. At one point in time, I had read that they were, and this was all with that same controversy, I had read that they went in and installed a, maybe this was for a different game, but a sort of malware on the inside of the systems that didn't allow you to be able to use your profile from one place to another. That might be a Helldivers thing or something. I don't know.
I do want to touch on that. That is a Helldivers thing.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and then they said they'd fix it, but they just installed a different type of malware, right? So I don't understand. They have always been, even when I was making games, they have always been very, very controlling on how the stuff that they put out, goes. So what I don't understand is why they let it get released and then went back and tried to fix it. What if they had an issue with it? Yeah, shouldn't they know off the bat that there's an issue with it?
Well, you can't pretend there's not betas, that there's not testing,
right.
there's not people that have caught this before, but
screenshots.
It's within a month, month of release. That's unacceptable. And this, I'm on Game Rant right now. I see as of yesterday, the petition reached over 80,000 signatures, and Sony has been refunding copies of the game under false advertising pretenses. So it's they're straight up saying that, yes, this is what we did.
Do you know if they changed it in code behind the scenes or if they went to the developer and had them change it?
I don't know. I don't.
Because I think it's actually pretty difficult for Sony themselves, unless they're the developer or an in-house developer, to change that. They would have to go back and get that file and change it there. Anyway, go ahead, Chris.
That's super interesting. One of the things that's crazy about this game, for those that are unfamiliar with it, it's very similar to like anime, if you will,
Oh, yeah.
in the character designs, right? And so the females have very, you don't say skimpy, but not a lot of clothing on, right? And their bodies are over exaggerated, right, as far as the feminine physique or what have you. But there's it's interesting because there's two arguments or two sides fueling this thing. It's, there shouldn't be that type of clothing or lack thereof in gaming or whatnot, and it's egregious. But then there's the other people that say, well, freedom of speech and expression, because the game was supposed to be uncensored. It was originally advertised as an uncensored game, meaning that whatever the developers wanted to create and put out there for the community, they could put it out there. And so you had this base of people that started getting behind this game,
Sure,
because of the uncensored nature of the game. And so now that Sony is dialing that back and going into the censorship, whether it's the clothing or the story or the movement of the bodies, whatever the case may be, people are genuinely upset, right? And I 100% agree with that, because it's a freaking video game. You know what I mean? And it's
right.
not a PG-13 video game. It's not it's rated appropriately, right? And so it's a rated appropriately, video game. And so if you pay your money and you're old enough to purchase, like, what are we doing here? Because everybody knows about Steam and some of the stuff you can find on Steam, right? So it's super interesting that a game like this, that is from a market, that market that typically will create games like this with this. I mean, think of Dead or Alive and other games that were, very similar in design, coming from that same, that geographic area. Like,
Well,
what's
and
the problem? What's the problem?
not only is it, like freedom of design and their ability to sell the game, it's like, where is the like decision making by the consumer? I mean, the demand for these games and what should be in them or not should be dictated by the consumer. And for a mega corporation, for reasons that I still don't fully understand, to go in there and just say, oh, we're going to make this decision based on what? I mean, this, like, why are you, it's kind of, like they're just getting too involved with something that only affects the consumer. The company, because like the game is selling like crazy. It's very successful. And that's why this is such big news, is because it's such a popular game. But they also they probably wouldn't censor a game that wasn't this popular. So it's like, for them to make that move and so quickly after release, and to just directly go against their consumer base is really interesting, because it does tie into the Helldivers thing a little bit. And I bet we'll see them walk it back. I just don't know what that looks like yet. But they have to address the fact that you have to provide what your consumer purchased, right? I mean, that's just 100%. business ethics 101.
100%.
Yeah, I mean, if I want to run around looking at juicy boobies and jiggly butts, I should be able to do that. You know what I'm saying?
Especially if you pay for it. I mean,
yep.
if you pay for it, because the interesting thing about that is that, I'm not going to get political, right? But how many different storylines do you see around like the Marvel universe, and going back and changing characters, sexual preferences, and different things like that? And again, not to get political and jump on that type of argument or discussion, but when you have the creative freedom to create something, right? It's your intellectual property, just like us as content creators. When we create a video, it's our property, right? And anyone that subscribes to our channels agree with what we create on a consistent basis enough to subscribe and want to see that video over and over again. And so to let outside phenomena, right, whether it's politics or it's movements or whatever the case may be, interact with that creative ability, it doesn't make sense, when you have consistent, you have a whole genre of anime of characters that look like this from this region, right? Sony itself is from that region, right? The games in that region consistently have this type of design. It's just very interesting that one that makes it over here is the one that gets censored,
Yeah, it is really interesting. And you mentioned like the Marvel Cinematic Universe and like Star Wars and stuff like that. Like we kind of touched on this the last episode. I don't want to
Yeah.
get necessarily go down a political rabbit hole either, but like the reason that like Disney is failing with Star Wars and failing with Marvel is because they're I mean pandering to an audience that is not going to watch their movies and is not interested in those movies. So like why? Why are you doing it? And that's this normally that's been happening for the last 10 years. So it's just kind of who Disney and Marvel and Star Wars is at this point. But like this was such like I don't know, it's just different because someone purchased something with their money instead of going to see a movie. Like when you go see a movie, I feel like, I don't know, maybe I don't know how to explain the difference. I mean, it's pretty obvious what the difference is, but yeah, I mean that's the whole thing is like you paid for something, you should get what is advertised, and that's why they're having to return these games. But like just reverse it, because then these people would buy everything back if you listen to them, which I think if we want to dive into the Helldivers 2 thing.
I was going to say that's a good segue when you think about reversing it, because Helldivers 2, right? The issue that was you basically had to have a PSN online account in order to play Helldivers.
Right.
So what had happened? They, Helldivers 2 came out 3 months ago, and they on the website it did say we will eventually require people to have this, but what they ended up doing was requiring it for regions that don't have access to PlayStation Network at all, because not every country in the world has that. But they were able to buy Helldivers 2 through Steam, and so now you're saying that, hey, even though you bought this, you have no access to it because you can't create a Sony account. And I think like if it was more obvious that was going to be eventually be the case, it wouldn't have been that much of a problem as long as you didn't region lock people. But like the fact that you did this 3 months into a very successful game, on top of the Stellar Blade stuff, on top of people just not being high on Sony anymore anyways, because I think people are a little nervous about it becoming too much of a monopoly with Xbox kind of stepping back out of the console war. I think like people are nervous about Sony, and so they're looking for any opportunity they can to be like Sony, like let's slap the hand, which is what successfully happened. So basically with Helldivers 2, Sony has backtracked within like 3 days of the online outrage and said like, hey, we're not gonna do this. I don't know the full details on how they changed it. It's not going to be completely in the consumer's favor. Because I don't trust them, but they did back up a little bit, and I think it's big to see that.
Sony to me is one of the most anti-consumer companies out there, like period, right? Like, and I've been a Sony fan forever. Like, I mean, the PlayStation series, itself is like holy grail of gaming, right?
Same.
Especially some of the games that they have and, the IPs that they have. But even going back to the fact that, you can't buy digital PlayStation games outside of the PlayStation Store, right? You can get Xbox on Amazon for $19.99, on sale, but you got to wait for the summer sale, for PlayStation to go get their games. And
they're the Apple of gaming.
They're the Apple of gaming. It's a walled garden, just like they say about Apple. I mean, the Portal,
dude. I was just thinking that
it's a great, right? Remember, I said that I was like, the Portal is going to be a really great system, but it's literally only for PlayStation. Like you can't connect Bluetooth headphones to it. You can't connect. You can't get on a browser, right? You can't get.
It's not even that. It's limited within Sony's own ecosystem, which is the bigger problem.
You can't play online,
right? Like you can't you can't stream games, and I think they did it to test the market because the handheld scene was crazy last year, even though it's not really like the same thing. But I think like they're prepping for a Portal Pro, because like the Portal right now is still sold out and hard to get. I mean, it's strictly due to under manufacturing, but yeah, I mean you're exactly right about. Sony's like take it or leave it, because we're not allowing our games anywhere else, and that's why I'm concerned for Game Pass. If like there were those rumors about it going to the like PlayStation, like that's a huge concern.
Man, listen, and it's funny. Last week when we were talking about the keyboard from Logitech, I was thinking Portal in my head. Like when you talk about somebody taking advantage of the marketplace and just throwing something out there, even though it's a good product.
It's an amazing product. That's the big thing.
Product.
Yeah,
that's the thing. You know what I mean? But I agree. They said that the moderator for that community for Helldivers 2 got fired as well.
Yes, the social community manager. Yeah,
I saw. He was the one telling the CEO. Yeah, the CEO was out there answering questions all over the place.
I didn't see that.
Yeah.
Well, and I think sometimes I don't like you don't it's not always clear if it's the developers or the whoever is like funding the projects, but like this is obviously Sony. Like there's no doubt about it. You know, like what
Oh,
they're doing, because like Helldivers, unfortunately, is going to take a hit on name recognition because of Sony, and like.
mm-hmm.
And that's why the monopoly is scary, because they don't have the choice to say, well, we're going to go Xbox exclusive, right? So it's
Right.
like when Sony has all the power, it's like, ooh, that's a little scary.
See, I'm wondering about that because, it looks like Xbox is moving out of consoles, right? But
Mm-hmm.
based on that original leak where they had the hybrid system, which was a console slash PC,
I
um,
forgot about that.
and I don't think they're technically going to be leaving the console arena. I think that their consoles just will be different going forward because of the infrastructure that they have, right?
Mm-hmm.
What makes Xbox strong is that they have that cloud infrastructure, right? Microsoft Azure. They own that cloud infrastructure that they can build out their services on, right? And so now you have Game Pass,
Mm-hmm.
and Game Pass is kind of a universal thing, right? I can play it on my cell phone, I can play it on my Ally, I can play it on my Samsung TV upstairs, I can play it on my laptop, I can play it on my Xbox, right? And so I don't necessarily think that they're going to be leaving the console completely.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just going to be different. I think it's going to be a hybrid type, scenario now because these mini ITX, computer builds are starting to be more or less, like consoles. And I think that they'll be able to kind of combine it with a custom CPU, custom, GPU, blah, blah, blah type setup. And it'll be a slash PC slash, console. I don't think that PlayStation has the infrastructure to be a monopoly in the gaming space, right? I think that they have the studios and they have the IPs to be top like they are, right? But I don't think that they can be a monopoly because Nintendo will still be there, right? And
If they don't buy
Nintendo,
them,
if they don't buy
there were
them,
talks about that last year.
right? We know Xbox tried to buy them,
Yeah.
right? I don't know if PlayStation has the buying power to buy a Nintendo. Now Sony umbrella probably does, but I don't know if their individual, gaming space has enough to buy Nintendo because Nintendo is like this quiet giant that just keeps going because it's its own entity. It's its own,
Dude, and
world of gaming.
they're about to be all over the place again because I'm pretty sure the Switch 2 comes out at the end of this year.
Has to. It has to, right?
Yeah.
It definitely has to.
I thought I had seen it 2025, but maybe I
Did it get pushed? I thought November this year.
Well, they haven't even announced what the name is, right? They're not calling it the Switch 2, except for everyone's calling it the Switch 2.
It's gonna be a completely new build again.
I think they're calling it
I don't know. Yeah.
they're calling it the Switcheroo.
The Switch U.
Let's talk about let's switch gears a little bit. Apple had their show this week on Tuesday, May 7th. They had the new peak release of the new iPads. What are your thoughts on the new iPad? I know Carl has a pretty strong one.
Well, only because I bought it. And it goes and it goes directly against my are you a new adopter or first thing I did after our podcast was new adopt something super expensive.
I think Apple like their products at this point you can do that with.
Yeah. So honestly, I had been thinking about upgrading my iPad. I had the iPad Pro before the M1 chip came out. That's the one that I've had for a really long time.
It's gonna be a big difference.
Yeah, and I use my iPad all the time, and I've just kind of sitting back and waiting. And this one finally came out, and you guys talked up OLED. You guys, so I kind of wanted to get into an OLED experience. And then at the same time, every time I try to use my iPad for some kind of video or something I'm doing, it doesn't have Stage Manager or whatever it's called. So I can't use multiple screens. I can't do different. So I was like, you know what? Let me go ahead and upgrade my iPad. I use it all the time. And one of the things that I always tell people, and I'm interested to hear people in the comments about this, but I always say spend your money on things that you use all the time, right? You buy a $600 watch and wear it every 2 months when you go to a nice dinner. It's just sitting there, right? I use my TV every day. I use my computer every day. I use my phone or my tablet every day. So I want to spend my money on the things that I literally get a ton of use out of, because when I buy something and it just sits there, I feel really bad about it. So anyway, I have some more thoughts on what like Marquez said and all that kind of stuff. But what do you guys think about like it being a new iPad right now? Because we didn't get one last year, did we? I don't think I did.
Did we not? I thought we did.
Got the Air?
No, we got updated Pros last year. We didn't get the Air.
Okay.
Air was 2 years ago.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure.
Oh, okay. So it was the Airs. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. What's funny, the Air now weighs more than the iPad Pros, which I think,
right.
which is pretty funny. I think like there's never been a better time to enter the Apple ecosystem ever, right? Because the technology is so good. But there's this curve in technology. I forget what it's called, where like at first every 5 years you see just tremendous increases in technology. And I think Apple is reaching this vertical curve with these M chips where it's like, how much better can they actually get? It's so incremental each year that they can actually improve these things. And the average person doesn't really need any more than the M1. So like the fact that they're keeping it affordable is because they have to, right? These chips are amazing. Like, as I have the M1 Max in my Mac Studio that I use, I've got an M1 MacBook Air, and they are, oh my God, these chips are just really amazing. But like your M4 chip that you're going to have that they're introducing in this iPad Air is going to be phenomenal. And so, anyways, like I'm really curious to see over the next 5 years how Apple changes, because they have to do something. They're running up against a wall of they can't increase their tech that much more, and there's not really that much more of a reason to upgrade anymore.
Right.
So,
yeah, I mean, honestly, I still use my regular iPad that I have right now. It does everything that I need. The only thing it doesn't do is like DaVinci Resolve, the editing software that I use. They recently put out an iPad version, so I can't use it because it needs the M1 chip. So I kind of had for me, it was a layering effect of things. Like I thought about getting it last year or the year before, and I just didn't. And this year, it hit the right nerve with the OLED screen being 13 inches, being super thin and light. You know, it was all these things that I thought, you know, that tips the scale. I'm going to do it for myself because it's something that I want.
Carl, it's the second time I've heard your ringer, bud.
I'm telling you, dude.
Tell him you're on camera.
Oh no! It says Corey's a bitch.
And now we're gonna get demonetized.
No, we're at least 5 minutes in, so we're good.
Okay, fair enough.
You know, you know the interesting thing is about the iPads. I'm at an impasse trying to decide if I'm going to get a new one, right? And so, Carl, we had the same one. I have the Pro the year before the M1 chip, right? And I have the 12.9 inch. And for a long time, I stopped using it because there wasn't anything for me to do with it. And it's because kind of probably what you hinted at, kind of what Marquez said, there's only so much you can do with an iPad, right? Especially as the needs from a hardware standpoint continue to rise, right? And so to Corey's point, the new iPad is capable of doing anything. But going to a point we haven't discussed yet, Apple locks the ability within the iPad to not cannibalize its own products.
Well, yes. The biggest drawback of an iPad is iPad OS. Like,
right.
It's got the same power as a MacBook, but because they have to keep it an iPad as a tablet, yeah, you're absolutely right.
And so because of that, you can't use the majority of the full service programs that you would use on your laptop. If I could carry around my iPad and do the stuff that I do on my laptop, like I wouldn't have a laptop because I don't use the screen. I connect it to my monitor. You know what I mean? And so it's sitting there plugged in. I'm using the M3 chip in this MacBook Pro 3 and then M3 Pro, but I'm not using the screen really.
And they still won't put a calculator in it.
They won't put a calculator.
They have
in
now.
it.
They put one in, and I just saw it the other day. It's there.
What? When? Like a native Apple created? Because Marquez talked about this like 3 days ago.
I swear I saw something the other day that said iPad now has a calculator built in. So I think they're adding it, but You know,
All right, we'll see on the next update.
I
That's a
might be
big
wrong.
update.
I might be. Yeah, that's why I bought it. That's why
You'll
I
have
bought
to
it.
have
The
the M4.
calculator.
You'll have to have the.
I will
M4 to run
calculate
it.
the crap out of stuff.
Got to have that OLED calculator.
1,
It's
5, 3.
It's the brightest OLED.
It's burning my eyes, but I gotta calculate.
Well, Carl, you said some things about what Marquez was talking about. It first off, did he have those in his studio?
He did. I don't care what.
I don't think he did. I don't think he
had
did.
it. Man, listen.
He also
You're saying he lied.
well
100%.
2 weeks ago he
Okay.
didn't. Okay, well here's this.
Professionally.
Like I think there's probably a way of saying it that's technically the truth, even if you understand it differently than what he's saying. Because literally 2 weeks ago in an interview, he said he's never accepted payment for reviewing a product, and I'm like, there's zero chance in 15 years of YouTube that he's not accepted money for a product review.
It's impossible, right? Because his standard wasn't a standard until now.
Right. So I'm like, one, he said for the first 6 years he didn't make any money on YouTube, or 3 years, something like that. So it was like, but it's still at some point he had to have been like, yeah, I'll take 30,000 to review this or something like that. So, anyways.
Oh yeah. I know. So I wasn't even going to watch the Marquez thing because I was like, he's just going to shame me. I'm going to feel bad about my purchase. I'm going to have regret.
I feel bad,
because it seems to be the popular thing for these guys to get on and be like, iPad, this and that, and he didn't. I think he kept the middle ground, saying, man, there's really, really big advances in how thin it is, how light it is. The screen is awesome, this and that and this. But what Corey just said, which was what holds it back, is the iPad, iOS, the iPad OS.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, okay, good. I didn't feel bad after watching it because I do tend to have, what's it called?
Buyer's remorse.
Buyer's remorse. Yeah, I tend to do that. I spend money and I'd be like, oh, why'd I do that? But I still felt all right with it because I feel like I'm going to sit on this iPad for another 4 or 5 years until something good comes out. And in fact, I'm going to sit on my phone for a while because I was looking at some of the concepts for the iPhone, the new Flip that they're looking to do in 25 or 26. A flip iPad, or a foldable. So
I didn't hear about this.
Yeah. So they're looking to do a foldable, and it's going to be kind of big, right? It'll be like double maybe
like
double
like the mini iPad.
Yeah, something like that. So when it folds up, it's more closer to a normal phone.
Oh man, I'm excited about that because I will say the thing about Apple, it won't be groundbreaking, but it'll be done right.
It'll be perfect.
Correct.
It'll be perfect.
Correct.
Yeah.
And that's why I haven't bought any of the Android, foldable stuff because it's just I can't. First of all, I don't want to change ecosystems, and second of all, it's just I've seen so many issues with it.
Now you're proving the FCC's lawsuit, but
you're the Apple customer they want, and I am too. I love the ecosystem.
Yeah.
Corey brought up a really good point a second ago. Carl, you're the perfect person to buy the new iPad because you have the older one like myself, right? And so from a reviewer standpoint, it's very true. Like from year to year, there's not very much growth incrementally, right? But you're going from pre-M1 chip iPad to M4 iPad, right? And so the leaps and bounds that you're going to feel while using that OLED screen with a high refresh rate, lightweight and thin, is exactly the trajectory or change pattern that an average consumer is going to go through. That makes sense. You know what I mean? Like somebody like, Marquez and them, like it's hard for them to get excited because they did have last year's model and they had every version. They had the Air and blah, blah, blah. And then now it's like, it went from the M2 and it's the M4 and, it's kind of better. But for you, it's like, my God, this thing is freaking sweet. Like this is night and day compared to what I had. Like I can run all these programs now. I can do DaVinci Resolve now. I can do so it's like your review is going to be the review that's the most authentic.
Yeah. I'm excited to see your reaction when you get it because I remember.
Let's do it on here.
What do you say?
I thought about that.
Unbox it on the podcast.
I know. I thought about that. That'd be pretty cool.
I'll do that because honestly, I was thinking, I'm not qualified to do a full iPad technological review because I'm just not into the background tech. Like, M4, that's all I know. I don't know if it's got 1.5 million quadribits of processing power.
You
know what I'm saying? But
you can ooh and ah over it, and I would love to see
what I'm going to do. Yeah, I want to open it up and give. I want people to understand if they're purchasing this, what they'll experience tactically or tangibly with the device when they're using it. You can go look up the the stats, the spec sheet, and look at it. Go for it. I'm not going to repeat or regurgitate. I'm going to try to go through and give an authentic experience of what
which
it's
is the
like
most important part, in my opinion. Is the most important part is how is it? All the specs sound good, but how is the product?
And honestly, Carl, if you review it from the average person standpoint, that's exactly like what people want to see. It's like, what's a real life application of it?
Yeah. Right. And I 100% agree with both of you guys when you say there's so much power, but I probably will only tap probably 10, 20% of it. Maybe if I'm, maybe if I'm doing DaVinci Resolve, but I just watch videos. I play some games, but I don't play major games on the iPad because I don't, I might try it this time now that I can, but I'm not going to get the controllers that go into a giant screen like this and just try to, sit there and play. I'd rather have a remote controller and hook it up to a TV and see everything.
Yeah. Well, the nice thing about the iPad is that you can connect, I don't know if you've done it with yours, but you can connect the Sony DualSense, controller and things like that and play on there. I mean, you can Game Pass on that thing too, man.
Speaking of which,
that's what I'm looking to try. Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, did y'all see like 1X Player? They're in the handheld gaming scene. That 11-inch, like it's basically a laptop that you can put like Switch controllers on and play. I want that so bad. I want it. Apparently, it benchmarks worse than the ROG Ally, but I just want it because the screen is amazing. Well, I was just watching Linus's review, and he said that just testing wise, it doesn't perform as well.
The interesting thing about tests, we kind of chatted about this the other day, I think on Instagram. Tests and benchmarks don't always align with the actual performance. Like, have you ever used a product where they'll say this benchmarked at 120 frames per second, then you use it and it's trash, and then on the flip side, this didn't benchmark very well, but then you use it and the user experience is great.
Oh yeah.
So like the thing with those synthetic numbers and synthetic loads, it just interests me because I know they're not sitting there playing those games for hours, right? They're running the Cinebench and they're running the Geekbench test scores and stuff like that. But those don't always compute when it comes to actual real loads, right? Real actual CPU and GPU loads. And so it's like I don't always subscribe to that. And that's why I really like the MSI Claw. I'm wondering, is it as bad as people say, the reviewers say? I haven't seen a lot of like user reviews on it, right? That says it's like horrible. So I'm interested to actually get my hands on that and see if the actual use case is as bad as what the
you're definitely right.
Test are saying.
The specs versus execution is always different. And like great example is Ally versus the Steam Deck, because the Ally in almost every way is more powerful, even than the OLED Steam Deck. Like it's, I can't remember the exact like where the Steam Deck is a little bit of ahead, but the Ally is more of a gaming laptop in a handheld form than the Steam Deck is. But because the operating system SteamOS works so well on the Steam Deck, it's a much more pleasant experience. Now, if you go into desktop mode, Steam Deck's not made for that. It sucks. But like the actual handheld gaming part of it is so much smoother.
Well, let's officially pivot to that, because that's one of the topics later, is that the ROG Ally is turning a year old. And so I wanted to talk through
I got some thoughts
on that. And then also, I know you just recently purchased a Steam Deck OLED. So, Ally's a year old. You have one. You just purchased the OLED Steam Deck. What are your thoughts?
Well, the Steam Deck is actually, I just had this neighbor who was like, hey, I saw that you review the Ally on your YouTube channel that I follow. Would you like to review this brand new OLED Steam Deck that I got? And I was like, yes. Save me $550. So he's a super nice guy, and he turns around 2 months later and he's like, I don't really play this thing. You want to buy it for $350? And I was like, yes, come on. And so I'm really excited to have it. And it's just ergonomically, for my really large hands, it's so much better than anything else in the market. But I did a video on the ROG Ally 2 already being announced and potentially coming out. And I have, it's a little, we're a little further away from that the thought process I had at that point in time, because this was like back in February or March. And I was like, dude, you're only 3 months removed from SD card overheating issues from some of the firmware updates that you had, dude. every episode. That thumbs up, it does it. But you're only a few months removed from major system errors. You kind of band-aided them a little bit, and then you're already talking about a second generation. And yeah, I'm interested in it just because of the nature of this channel, and I want to review it because the Ally is really what started me down this tech path. But I'm really interested to see. They have to address the issues, and it has to be 1.5 times as powerful in every way. In my thoughts.
I think the part 2 is fixing the issues, like predominantly, right? Because there's a lot of rumors saying that there's not very much going to be changing with it, right? And so I think that the second version is just a cleaner, more complete release, right? And maybe a OLED screen, right? Like maybe. But in my opinion, the ROG Ally, I think we said this a couple podcasts ago, like it is a small PC, right? It's not a handheld. And with that being said, it is limited by the Windows operating system as a PC would be. Because like you play a game on a console, you can get 120, 144 frames with no issue, right? On an Xbox or PlayStation 5. You play that same game on a PC. Now you got to have a 4090. You got to have a, you got to have a good CPU. You got to have a good motherboard delivering good power to the, components, and you got to have good RAM. But you don't need all of that with a component with a console. And the Steam Deck is built more like a console than it is a computer, and that's why even though you're going to get higher benchmarks on those Allies, sometimes those games just run better on a Steam Deck.
I totally missed that the ROG Ally X was announced. Did you hear about this?
No, not at all.
I'm on IGN right now. There's an article literally today at 4:30 Central, an hour and a half ago. ROG Ally X announced next handheld gaming PC featuring new color variant and improved battery life. Now, this is obviously like the ROG Ally has the Z chip and then the Z1 Extreme. And the Z1, the $400 Ally, is a complete waste of money. Why in the world would anyone buy that? But especially because they kept dropping the price of the Z1 Extreme. And so now I'm looking at this thing, in addition to the enhanced battery life, the Ally X will be more repair friendly, which I think is hilarious because you got to be able to work on the dang thing, which includes interchangeable redesigned joystick modules. It also, the M.2 SSD slot is increased. I wonder if it's going to be one of those longer form M.2s because they want you to be able to replace it with third parties to increase capacities, and SD card slot will still be there. But it still has the same 7-inch LCD display, 1080p resolution that caps at 120. This ain't the ROG Ally 2, but what I think they're trying to do is it's the same chip too, Z1 Extreme.
Yep, same chip. Yeah.
What they're trying to do is stay relevant for the Ally 2 is what they're doing.
That's what it is.
But the problem
is in between,
right? And that's what the Portal was from PlayStation. Not only did they capitalize on the handheld market scene being on fire last year, but they also wanted to stay relevant for the PS5 Pro, and they did, because the Pro comes out this year. Sony never left the news with PlayStation. The problem with this is there's not enough adopters of the ROG Ally for this to make sense. So this model, I don't know, I'm not seeing a price on it just yet, but for this model to come out and then later at the end of this year, the Ally 2 to come out, I don't like this move personally. This has got, like, I don't know. What are y'all's thoughts?
This is a pass for me.
Yeah. I'm not into the handheld, gaming systems like you guys are. I think you guys both cover that stuff on your channels, and I'm just not into it as much as you guys are. But I have a question for you, which is if someone gave you $1,000 right now and said, I want you to go out and buy a handheld system that you will play and it will be your primary system that you use, which one would you pick?
Probably the 1X player, 11-inch screen. They have $1,000 version of it.
Yeah.
But is it only because of the 11-inch screen, or because you think the specs will keep up and it'll be better experience than the Steam Deck?
Because of the screen.
It's only the screen.
Okay, all right. But that's because you're 19 feet tall and you have giant claw hands.
Right.
I'm looking like from like for me or for my kids or for a general consumer. It seems to me like, why would you ever, and I'm all for competition, but if the competition sucks, it's not going to do anything for the market. you know, go for the Steam Deck because it's the one that has the most focus that most people use. It's the most.
Well,
It just seems like, but I'm interested. That's what I would think, but I would be interested in what you guys say.
depends on use case. Just
Yeah.
like if you want the ability to take a handheld, like transportation gaming, and have a desktop setup, things like the Ally are great like that because it works really well in desktop mode. Like you hook that thing up to a dock, and I hope Ally 2 has more like not docking capabilities, but maybe more inputs or like more USB-C and stuff like that. I would like to see,
Yeah.
or maybe even it's modular a little bit naturally without a case. I don't know how that would work, but I think from that standpoint, if you need a jack of all trades, the Ally is superior. There's a lot of it's pretty close to a lot of the other systems, but if you want simplicity, Steam Deck is 100% the way to go, especially because you can buy 2 of those for $1,000 easy.
I think the ROG Ally 2 should come with its own dock that has the
Ooh,
inputs, the IOs, right? So like
dude.
if it came with its own dock with you know, HDMI 2.1 and 10 inputs, USB-C, and because like Corey's saying, the ROG Ally, I got it sitting here on my desk. I was playing with it earlier. Wanted to make sure I had all the most up-to-date firmware and stuff. But when you connect it up as a PC, it literally is like a budget laptop. It's more powerful than your average mini PC.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so with that being said, like you take that on the road and a monitor and a keyboard and a mouse, and you got a whole package. So if the 2 came out and it came out with the dock with more IOs and we didn't have to buy something third party and it was seamless and connected, that would be ideal.
That's you're gonna get me heated on this point because when the Ally came out, they had a dock for it, a $65 dock. That was a 65-watt charger. I don't even think it came with a USB-C cable. It had HDMI 2.0, USB-C, and USB-A. And that thumbs up is not because I approve of that dock. I hated that dock. And that actually started me down the path of finding docking stations because their dock, and I bought it. I bought the dang thing. And talk about buyer's remorse, Carl. That gave me buyer's remorse. So like if Asus has listened at all, they got to address that.
I have that dock and it's plugged in somewhere being used to, I think, charge my kids' iPhone.
As a wall charger. Yes, me too.
It's basically compatible with a Temu charger that you order, the 65-watt GAN charger that you order.
It's only $40 now, but yeah.
Yeah. But to go back to your question, Carl, my favorite handheld is still my Logitech G Cloud. That's still my favorite handheld. And it's not even... It's because most of the games, it's not an actual gaming console. It's like the Portal, except it has all the other functionality.
Dude, if you like that,
how much does that run?
Like $299, $250 usually, somewhere around there.
Man, honestly, if you could pay $70 for that GameSir G8 Galileo that I reviewed like a while back, that's like
similar.
God, it's so good. For $70, it's a really good quality controller, but it's for your phone, right? If you're comfortable with using your phone.
Yeah, I got the backbone version 2, USB-C version.
Yeah.
But the thing about the cloud is that it does all the things, like it's this dedicated system, so you're not getting your phone notifications and stuff like that, but it's also a tablet. It's also also has a browser, and you can hook any Bluetooth headphones to it. You can hook any Bluetooth peripherals to it, keyboard, mouse, all that different stuff to it. And it's fun, right? And as long as you have good internet, that's the crux, right? As long as you have good internet, it's the best experience because Game Cloud and all of those things cap you at 1080p 60, right? And so you get 1080p 60 when you're playing in good internet. So it's like it's a perfect experience.
Okay, so I had one of my viewers say that on my Portal video that if you unplug the HDMI from your PS5, there's less latency. And I haven't tested it yet, but I was like, how does that work if my TV's off? But I'm really curious about that. Have you heard of that?
No, because they used to have it. If you unplugged a cable, it would go into that like weird mode that you unplugged the cable while it was on. I've never tried that before.
I haven't either. I was just curious if you knew about that, but yeah, I've never heard that. I don't see how it would affect latency if there's no output signal to HDMI, but I don't know.
It makes sense though.
Yeah.
I mean, technically it makes sense broadcasting, because that computer, because everything is being processed on the PlayStation 5, right?
Mhm.
And so if it's not processing a signal, that means it has more computing power in
Yeah.
theory, right? And so if the GPU isn't being used to display a signal, then it's running the game more, right?
Yeah.
But is
Kind
there a
of.
difference between having it unplugged or the TV turned off? Like, is there really a
Technically that
difference? I'd be
signal is still
interested.
going. Technically that signal is still going to the TV. It's just you don't have your TV receiving that input. Right, that's on the TV board. The on the TV side that which input is being selected.
That's interesting. I'm going to check that out and see if that's the case.
Mhm. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, when I've played PlayStation Remote using the Ally or using the G Cloud, like it's seamless experience. Like I've sat in front of it and not really seen any latency, like
Yeah.
anything that.
I will say that back on, I actually have that Steam Deck that I picked up right here. Back on what we were talking about OLED screens. This is my first time I've ever seen an OLED screen like with gaming, and I know I showed a product last video too, but
Like 3 last time.
but like but I've been playing on the Ally. Sometimes I play on the PlayStation Portal, which has a great screen, by the way. It's not OLED though, but I did not realize how good an OLED screen was until I just downloaded Fallout 4 because like, the TV show got me back into it. Turned Fallout 4 onto this thing like literally a day and a half ago, and I was like, holy crap. OLED the color is so rich and just vibrant. Carl, I'm excited for you to get that iPad.
I am too,
Seriously.
man. I'm looking forward. I
Though.
literally, and again, like I said, I just got my first 4K TV, so I put on these videos of the beach, and I'm like,
hold on,
wow.
Hold on, back up a minute. You just got your first 4K TV.
Wait,
first, yeah.
It's 2024, brother. What are you been watching?
You can get one for like $20. Like you.
What did you get? Okay, I don't know how we didn't talk about this. How?
Yeah,
What
I
were
thought
you?
I talked about it last week in the early adopter thing. I told you I'm not an early adopter.
That's worse than late adoption. Though.
Yeah.
Well,
it's my first 4K TV, and I've been enjoying it. But it's not like I have a ton of signals that come to my TV that really take care of it.
Are either of y'all an Office fan?
What are you gonna call me?
I'm not. There's one scene in The Office. The most famous episode of The Office is called the dinner
Oh
party.
yeah. That was my old TV.
That plasma against the wall, dude. That scene gets me every time. But what were you rocking?
The bloopers.
Yo, I love the bloopers.
It was just 1080p, Sony.
Was it like
and I loved it.
Tube TV, like one of those big old?
No. It was a CRT. Yeah.
Okay.
No, I'm just kidding. It was.
He took it in stride.
It was a CRT with all the green text. The green text from back in the day and the nuclear bunkers. It was one of those.
You in the Fallout monitor?
Yeah. It was a Pip-Boy. I was just watching Pip-Boy.
I'm just shocked. Now, is it a 1440p or is it a 2160?
It's a 2160. Yeah.
Okay, good. I'm about to say
it's 100 inches too. Like I had a 65 before. I went up to 100, and now.
Oh, nice. What'd you get?
Just a Vizio, cheap. I'm not super into like getting.
Vizio's good.
TV.
I like Vizios.
Yeah, I like Vizio too. Yeah, so I went ahead and picked that up, and I've been happy with it. But again, I recognize that I'm way behind the bar on that.
I mean, only 10 years.
I'm probably the only. Yeah.
That OLED's
I should have just gone to 8K, right?
Dude, whenever was Obama still president? Whenever like 10 years ago,
I think it was Jimmy Carter.
Before that. You might pass out when you see that OLED. Like, and I'm not even being.
Dude,
funny,
and the funny thing, go ahead.
I was gonna say I'm not even being funny. Like the it's not a brightness thing with the OLED, right?
Yeah.
It is the ability because they're self-emissive diodes, right? And so it's like individual pixels that light and turn on and turn off, right? And so it's the ability for that screen to be 100% black without any haloing or anything like that is going to take you down a certain path of content. And it's not like I buy OLED not because I have to have an OLED. It's because after seeing an OLED, it is really hard to buy something else.
That's why. Like that's. And the funny thing is, if I probably wouldn't have gotten this if I didn't know you guys, and I specifically did it because you guys talk about it. Like in my head, I'm like, how can it be that much better?
You
know what I'm saying? How can it be?
Okay,
and so go ahead.
I will say this. Y'all know that I got that ultra wide Alien Gear monitor, or Alienware monitor, like a couple weeks ago.
Do you want to show it?
Well, I took it back. I took it back. I literally took it back a couple of days later because the MSI one came out, and I've been waiting for it to be available. But I'm using this 34-inch like LG 16:9 ratio gaming monitor that's great for like refresh rate and low latency and stuff. And it like the darks almost have like an opaqueness to them.
Yeah, great.
And I didn't realize until I turned on that Alienware, and I was like, oh, like this is what real depth of color looks like. Like the black it's not dark, it's black, and it's like it's different. It's like it's not like just the part of the screen is off. It's like it's projecting black, and I'm like, I don't know if that's exactly how it works, but I was really impressed just with the 30 minutes that I had it on before I took it back. So I'm excited for the OLED MSI monitor. I'm just terrified of burn-in. That's the only thing.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, and I've used the 48-inch LG CX OLED screen for a monitor for almost 4.5 years now. Since launch. I had it pre-ordered and it came before the launch date, and I do have burn-in it now, but that was prior to the newer technologies to prevent burn-in as they started being used for monitor. Like this people used it for a monitor, but it wasn't like LG didn't prepare for people to use it for a monitor, right? It was a small OLED, but generation the C1, the C2, and the C3, they started having different cooling components. They started their the screen is actually made out of a different technology. It's still an OLED, but it's made out of hydrogen as opposed to like the old,
right?
Not hydrogen, with vice versa, whichever one it is, but the newer OLEDs aren't made out of the same material this OLED is made out of. And
I'm a lot more confident in it because most OLED making companies like monitors or TVs have 3-year burn-in warranties, which is significant. 3 years, I mean, that's solid. So
you figured out in 3 years if you're gonna burn it in or not,
right?
For sure.
Yeah,
right.
Sure. I watched your what 3-year update.
3 year, 3.
Yeah, I watched that. People should watch that if they haven't, because it's pretty good video.
And you can't even see
OLED.
it. Like the crazy thing about it is normal use you cannot see it, but when you use it as a monitor, because you'll have a whole screen of like a white document or something like that, you'll see that very thin line. But normal, like right now, I can't see it.
Yeah,
watching TV, playing a game, you can't see it. It's only when you have a document up or something like that.
And I will also say that one of the reasons I had not upgraded my TV for a long time was because when my kids were young, I bought a brand new nice TV. Wii remote straight through the friggin' front of the screen and broke the crap out of it. So I decided I'm going to buy this TV. It's going to stay here. And now that they're 16 and 18, I finally went ahead and upgraded, but it's still no excuse.
I got a toddler that I'm terrified of that. He just discovered like golf clubs, like not to golf with. He just has this little plastic set. And he's been swinging his putter around, and I'm like, bro, like, I love you, but please.
If you've ever seen fear in the eyes of a child, you should have seen both of my kids when they had to come tell me that happened, because they looked like ghosts. And it's something that happens. I didn't really rail on them too hard. I just said, oh man,
I'm like jumping out of my seat because you remember. So I'm jumping out of my seat because you just bought a Vizio. Vizio came out with the Vizio P Quantum. It was their very first quantum television. It came out in like 2018-ish, somewhere around there. Very first quantum television. I bought it brand new. It was when I first started my channel. Bought it brand new, had it for 4 days. Came home from work and it had spider web breaks in the screen. Like it was the brand new, and this was right as Vizio was having their like transcendence, and they were becoming like Vizio. You know what I mean? And it was their first. It was a PX Quantum or something like that. And I came home and I was so proud of my kids because they would not tell on each other. They wouldn't say who did it. They were just like, I don't know what happened. And all I could do was literally like, I just walked outside and I like walked around the block, came back, packed it up and took it back to the store. Like that's literally all I could do. Like I was so like, oh my God. Like I literally just paid like $2,600 for this TV. Right. So I got a story for that. So we're getting close to the time, right? So there's one more topic I want to cover before we get out of here. And controversial, maybe not. TikTok officially banned in the US pending sale, right? Now as YouTube content creators, this could affect us drastically, right?
In a good way.
In a good way or a bad way, depending on if the YouTube platform gets flooded with TikTok creators from a short form content, and then now we're fighting for space, or you get what I'm saying, viewership and stuff like that. But it's new audiences coming potentially, right? So what are your thoughts on that whole scenario? TikTok ban, official, has to be sold, blah, blah, blah. What are your thoughts?
I got a lot. I'm trying to think of like what to share first, just because
go ahead.
I was just going to say that like, I don't think the government should have a say in this, right? This is that's kind of like the number one thing that comes to my mind. Am I going to be more productive not having TikTok in my life? Yeah. I doom scroll, man. I'm bad about it. I get on there and like TikTok's algorithm is so good that it just feeds me just a little bit of random every now and then. Like I've got this wild algorithm, and now my wife and I like to send videos back and forth, and like every couple of days we like to lay down and be like, okay, let's catch up on our talks. And so now like there's not only the enjoyment of what I'm watching, there's also like a mission to it. I'm like, hey, what can I send her that makes her laugh or shocks her or something like that? But like I would get a lot more time back in my day. I have more thoughts, but go ahead, Carl. You had something you're going to say.
No, I was going to try to stay out of whether or not, I would be surprised if someone said, "Oh yeah, I think the government needs to control every one of our media stations and does all this kind of stuff." I think we're all in agreement that the government shouldn't have the power to say either you sell to a U.S. company or we're going to ban you and get you out of here.
Right.
Granted, I have read that we're not the first country to do that. It's happened in a lot of other countries, but we're not used to that with America and freedom and all this kind of stuff. And I think they're going to go? I don't know. It's difficult, I mean, our government can't even change daylight savings time so it doesn't happen anymore. So, how do they ban freaking TikTok?
Well,
so
I don't think it's going anywhere. I think it'll change drastically. Yeah. It's too much money. It's too much money to go disappear.
Well, and going down the rabbit hole and the political thing, it's like when you give people the power to put news out there that's not censored by the government,
that's
and all of a sudden the government gets upset, and that bothers me. But it's also a flip side of that, which is misinformation. I'm almost to the point where if I see something on TikTok, I'm like, yeah, that's bull crap. You know what I'm saying? How do I know if that person, you see some video of a paranormal thing, I'm like, it's so fake, or maybe it isn't, or are those aliens? You get caught up in that stuff. I'm totally getting off target.
Okay, next episode, be sure to subscribe because I want to talk about if y'all believe in aliens or not.
Yeah,
we'll get into that.
I want to talk about that.
Okay,
I definitely talk. You already know.
I did too.
Okay, next episode. That's gonna be a good one.
In ghosts and ghostesses
and Sam Squanch.
Hey, listen,
and the Yeti.
The Yeti. Corey's sitting right there. Don't talk about it.
Oh yeah, hey.
Look, Corey. I'm Corey. I'm not Rob Gronkowski, man. Give me a break.
Right. I did a video on the TikTok ban, right? And I have very strong beliefs and thoughts on freedom of speech, uncensored news, right? Misinformation, whatever it is. I think that people within a free society, as we say ours is, should have the opportunity to watch it, review it, discover it, research it on their own, and decide if they believe it or not. Right? When you try to control someone's thought processes by removing information or lack thereof, I think that's worse than dictatorship, right? Because people are controlled by their knowledge, right, and their lack thereof. And so, even if it's misinformation, like give them the opportunity to go research it themselves, right? Like to just say that I think this is misinformation, so I'm not going to allow you to view that, is not very free society of us, right? And to Carl's point, TikTok has been removed from a lot of different environments, but it's also those environments that control knowledge, right, and control media sources, right? And America, to an extent, does that, right? Like the information that we get as far as like what's happening in different parts of the world isn't uncensored and it's not unfiltered, right? I mean, how can 30 channels of news across the nation say the exact same thing? Like if that's the case, nobody's really being a journalist, right? So it's interesting, but just from a pure money standpoint, saying that it has to be sold to an American company is interesting to me, right? When there are so many other, places in the world that don't have the quote unquote threat to national security that China would have, right? And so it's just,
if it
the
was
whole
any
thing's
other
interesting to me.
if it was any other country, I feel like it would be a different scenario. I think the China thing has a lot to do with it, right? I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
just like if you look at how much land they own in the U.S. right next to active U.S. military bases, and how much of U.S. owns land in China.
Yeah,
No, it's not the same. They regulate that, right? And so I think to a certain extent we should as well. But like at the same time, I completely agree that like people should be able to mass communicate with each other, and we should not be siloed with that communication being filtered by the media. Because as you can see, the extremeness of the media over the last decade, whatever your side you're on or whatever you believe, I think as a whole, we all believe that mainstream media is not reliable. It's not true. They have agendas, and that's what I like about having an app like TikTok. I like the fact that information can not only spread to the masses, but spread rapidly, right? Like people, and the thing is, you're never going to control quality and accuracy. That's no matter the source, right? And so like, there's going to be a lot of bull crap out there that people are going to be like, I would rather most people not believe of what's going on than just buy into anything. Cause I think that's dangerous. I think that's probably even a little bit more dangerous. And so, yeah, I don't support anything changing. Will it improve my life? Yes. So it'll improve my life, but I don't want it to change because it's better for, I think, just people in general. I don't know.
My only issue, I guess one of my biggest issues that I haven't voiced, we talk about Xbox having a monopoly on gaming. Well, Facebook will have a monopoly on information, right? Because they own Instagram, they own Facebook, and they own WhatsApp, right? And so we're talking about the three largest.
WhatsApp is huge outside of the U.S.
It's the largest. It's actually the largest social media in the world, right? People just don't know it, right? But that's all owned by one company that is now in debt to the U.S. because they also leaked all the information of 82 million users that allowed for the, the Britannica, situation that happened a couple years ago with the election and things like that. And so it's very interesting that you're pushing out the free source of information and news, and you're keeping the one that controls, the media, if you will.
Yeah.
I mean, especially because they say over 50% of the younger generations use TikTok to get their news source. They don't watch traditional news places. Right. And so you remove their opportunity to see the news that they want to see, uncensored and unfiltered. And you replace it with someone that already has leaked national security. And that's an American-owned company.
Yeah. And I'm not a fan of monopolies. I'm just not. And so like, I don't want YouTube, as a YouTuber, I don't want YouTube monopolizing the entertainment genre or social media in the form of videos. And so I think it's good competition, because like I say that TikTok kind of changed YouTube with YouTube Shorts, because we can't even post YouTube Shorts on our channels without destroying the organic growth of our long form content. And so it's like, there's definitely a lot of bad that TikTok has brought to the industry in a lot of different areas. When I see my screen time reports, I'm like, oh my God, TikTok's got to go. But then whenever I'm faced with it actually going, I'm like, let's hold on to it.
The one thing I will say about their algorithm is that it stays true to who you are, though. Right. And to your point, like,
it's very true.
Every once in a while, it may go just a little bit. I mean, maybe Corey is interested in this, right? But like, my TikTok algorithm is ancient societies. It's conspiracy theories. It's tech. But it doesn't really stray outside of there. And every once in a while, you'll send me a video. I'll send you a video, and you'll make a joke like messing up your algorithm for you. But in reality, like when I get on TikTok, like I don't see any of the stuff that everyone says is the bad thing about TikTok. Like I get on there and it's straight news, right? Because that's all I watch on there. You know what I mean? And so
algorithms don't feed people agendas; they feed people what they want to see. And I think a lot of people get that confused. Yeah, just like Carl's algorithm is nothing but chili dogs and Japanese boobies.
and pre.
I told you that. I told you that. In confidence, not to share with the people
of the internet.
Well, I was about to ask Cozy if you like chili dogs, but I know that you don't. So
let's clear this up. I like donuts, bro. I don't like chili dogs as much as donuts. So let's keep it straight. What's your favorite food? All right, what's your favorite food?
It's hard to narrow it down. It's hard. It's hard to. Well, now we're gonna have to bleep that out, Carl.
Right.
No one's gonna sponsor us now, but I don't know. I'd have to go. You want to talk about top 5 foods real quick, because I can't just say one specifically, because like
Sure.
like,
yeah. We'll close it with that.
okay, if someone utters the word pizza, I have to have pizza. Like it's
Utters.
I just said it out loud, so it's like the odds of me having pizza go up tremendously. It's one of my favorites. I love a good cheeseburger, chili dogs. I'm actually a very big chili dog fan, even though I give you a
yeah,
about
that's
it.
why.
Mexican food, not a specific dish.
Mexican food is on my list. It's up there, and not
cuisine.
authentic. I want like the
Tex-Mex. You want Tex-Mex?
Yeah. I want the Americanized version of it. So
yeah. I wonder if y'all have ever had good Tex-Mex. Like, obviously I'm from Texas, and so I have superiority here. But I'm just curious if y'all have actually if y'all.
I grew up in Arizona, buddy. I grew up in Arizona, and I still go to Garcia's in a heartbeat.
What about you, Cozy? They got anything in Georgia?
Well, they do, but there's a ton of spaces, here. I mean, we have whole neighborhoods of migrant areas, right? I mean, there's places right up 85 where that entire space is kind of like a migrant area, right? So you have your blend, you have your authentic, and then the further you get out, it starts to become Tex-Mex as you get closer to the city. My godparents are Mexican though, so I grew up on authentic.
Dude,
Mexican
mine are
food.
too.
Yeah, so like that.
What about you, Carl?
I don't have them. Thank you for bringing up the sore spot, buddy.
I didn't hear y'all's favorite food though, so now y'all gotta go.
Well, I'm vegetarian, so I don't eat a lot, right? So like my
vegetarian.
Yeah, I'm vegetarian. I've been vegetarian since
Unfriend.
2019. So you're the cause for deforestation, but but no, my favorite foods are, I probably eat baked potatoes and French fries and vegetarian patties like Impossible meats and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, just like anybody else, but they're vegetarian burritos or pizza or whatever the case may be. But I'm not a food person though. I'm not a foodie. I can eat the same thing over and over again.
That's why he's skinny. That's why he's skinny.
Yeah, 100%. But don't worry, Carl. Once I found out that Cozy's vegetarian, I make sure to order an extra burger patty on my cheeseburgers just to make up for it.
Yep, same here. I will start to do that 100%.
That's what got our channel demonetized. But oh goodness. But yeah, man, today was cool, man. I hopefully I want to try to do this, bi-weekly if possible. But thank you to everybody that tuned in with us again. We're super excited to have this in this dedicated space. Going to start putting out clips and different things like that from the conversation. So let us know your favorite part. Let us know what parts of the conversation are interesting to you, and what type of things you want us to talk about going forward in the future. And fellas, is there anything you want to say before we log off for today?
I think we'd also talked about, I'd love to hear anyone who's watching this and their interest in it. We talked about potentially bringing just like us gaming together, like some like clips of that as well, because occasionally the 3 of us will hop on a game and it's a really good time. It's a much different conversation than we have here. So I'd love to hear if anyone's interested in seeing that type of content from us as well.
Yeah, can we swear when we play the game on the gaming part? Yes, the answer is yes, we can.
Sure.
All right. No, I was going to say, if we're going to do this bi-weekly, people really have to put comments down below saying you're enjoying it, and please let us know what to talk about, because we can guess what you all want to hear about, but we don't know. So if you have something we want to talk about, please do so, because we will jump on that right away.
It will devolve into things you don't want to hear about if you don't tell us what you want to hear.
Right. Yeah, right.
Me saying things that get us demonetized all the time. Sorry.
And Carl wears pre-owned underwear. We found that out.
Yes,
dude.
Pre-owned underwear. I don't have godparents. I
just got a 4K TV.
just got a. I just learned how to use a pencil. It's the first time I use rocks to make fire. It's crazy over here.
That Carl household is wild.
It is.
You got like 6 monitors in the background though, but
they're all 380p.
They're all 3 each 80p. Wow.
Oh goodness. Well, all right, fellas. Good seeing you. Let's catch up again. See you in a couple weeks, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Sounds good.
Peace.